At IHM VCU, we've always been here for you. You are and always will be our top priority. We care about your financial health, and we are here. IHM VCU is a proud supporter of WQPT.
The future. That's where our minds are at Western Illinois University Quad Cities. We are innovators, searching for something new outside of the textbooks. Dog-loving, leadership-driven, world-changing. Whether you choose to study on campus or online, your future is designed on your terms. Start your future at wiu.edu/QC.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 35 years.
A retired Rockford judge says he's ready to represent Western Illinois in Congress. We talk with Republican candidate Joe McGraw on the Cities. Joe McGraw stepped down after a 20-year career as a presiding criminal court judge, and soon after announced his intention to run for Congress. This fall, Judge McGraw will face off against Democrat Eric Sorensen for the 17th District, which stretches from Rockford through the Quad Cities and Peoria and down to the Bloomington-Normal area. In announcing his bid for election, Judge McGraw said he's running to take on corruption in Washington and return the district to a free, safe, and economically prosperous community. We talked with Judge McGraw about his campaign.
Judge, tell me, why is it that you decided that now was the time to run for Congress?
That's a question a lot of people ask, and it's usually accompanied by kind of a smirk or a smile, and they want to know why I didn't go to Florida with everybody else who retires in Illinois. But what I saw in my time on the bench, especially the last few years, showed me that our district and our country was really going the wrong direction. I've got 5 adult kids, 2 grandkids, and I wanted to make sure that they could have the same type of access to the American dream that I had. So I postponed climbing on board my Harley-Davidson motorcycle and heading west because there's still work to be done here in the 17th.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, because as you said, I mean, you spent a lot of years on the bench. Tell me a little bit about your history.
Yeah. So before all that, I've been a lifelong Illinoisan. My dad was a World War II combat vet. My mother came here from Italy as an immigrant. And after Pearl Harbor, she joined the Women's Marines, one of the first women to do so. And so after they met and started our family, you could say that patriotism and service to country was pretty much in our DNA. And they taught us love God, love your family, and love your country. And so I joined my dad making horseshoes. That's right, horseshoes for harness racers and for thoroughbreds in our family business. So as I grew in age and stature, I did more and more jobs, ultimately making the shoes myself. And so I learned hard work at an early age and working till the job was done.
I always wonder why somebody runs for Congress first. Why not school board? Why not county board? Why not state assembly?
Well, you know, I served 2 terms on the county board up in Winnebago. I was served on several committees, public safety, zoning. I was also the chair of the reapportionment committee way back in 2020. Pardon me, 2000. Gosh, how time flies. Yeah, 2000, and we were able to get the county boards reapportioned, redistricted with only, I think, 1 no vote. It was a bipartisan effort, and so we're proud of that. When I was in private practice, I represented everyone from pretty much every walk of life. And as a prosecutor, I handled all the violent crime cases in Rockford. I tell people I came to Rockford for the crime, and I was never disappointed.
And that's one of the things, one of the pillars that you are running on is crime and security in the United States. For the 17th District, I mean, the 17th District isn't a large city. It is a widely rural area with some urban sections. Is crime really a problem in Western Illinois?
Well, to find that out, you have to talk to the sheriffs, you have to talk to the chiefs of police, which I've done. 12 of the 14 sheriffs in the district have endorsed me. They see that there are no, everything's a border community nowadays. You know, they all see the crime coming from south of the border, crimes being committed by illegals against American citizens. And the thing that shocked me the most was all of the fentanyl deaths. And even yesterday, we were out in Fulton, Prophetstown, and even there, they've recovered large amounts of fentanyl, enough to kill the entire city. So there's no place that's safe. It's all it is a question of degrees, Jim. But every community is being touched by this.
I know borders has a lot to do with fentanyl and the drug smuggling into the United States, but also treatment's so important. And you've seen that so much as a judge. Stopping the drugs from coming into the country is important, but stopping the appetite is important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. You really, it's not an either or situation, it's a both. 80% of the fentanyl in the United States comes from across the southern border. It's manufactured by China, and it's shipped across our open southern border. So if you could wave a magic wand and cut down on 80% of the fentanyl that's coming into the United States, you'd cut down on the corresponding deaths. Illinois is fourth in the nation for fentanyl deaths. And these are things that, we've been fighting the war on drugs for a long time in one form or another. In our courtroom, we focus on evidence-based practices where we really try to get to the root cause, and obviously mental health, substance abuse, veterans with PTSD. There's a huge lack of mental health services in Illinois and a huge lack of substance abuse treatment in Illinois. And we are doing the best we can with the limited resources we have, Jim, but there's always room for improvement. And we saw lives turned around, folks in our court system, and some that were tragically cut short because they had a relapse that included a fentanyl adulterated drug, and all the progress they'd made and the bright future they had were just went up in smoke in one day.
Well, and I ask you specifically because you've seen these tragic stories time and time again. And fentanyl is today, methamphetamines was before that, although that hasn't been, necessarily gone, of course. Cocaine, marijuana, all of these things. It just seems like Americans always seem to have an appetite for drugs. And how do you combat that? I mean, you can go back to Nancy Reagan and even before that.
Yeah, well, that's true. And that's unfortunate. But as the family continues to break down, as there are less and less jobs that someone's able to support a family on, both parents are working. They're both working multiple jobs, multiple part-time jobs. They have less and less time to be with their kids, to go to their kids' games, go to their kids' practices and recitals, and to just interact with them. Because at the end of the day, they're beat because they're sprinting just to keep up with the inflation we have. So all the things you mentioned are true, but this is just an added super stressor on top of it all.
So what is the role of Congress? What would be your role to help diminish this problem?
I think you have to, first off, go to the source, shut it down. The border's got to be secured, continue building the wall, but more importantly than that is return to the Remain in Mexico policy for those that are seeking status here in the United States to come in. And that we had that. The previous administration used its substantial foreign policy influence with Mexico and with the other countries in Central America to require them to cooperate with this influx of illegals. For example, in Mexico, they were convinced to put their own army on their northern border, our southern border, to protect people from coming across. And also they had to provide a sanctuary within Mexico for those seeking asylum to have a safe place to go until the State Department went down there and interviewed the individuals to determine if they were eligible for asylum. Now that's been completely done away with. There's no more Remain in Mexico. Everyone floods across on a so-called parole status. By statute, federal statute, that's supposed to be a per person, one case at a time determination, not swing open the floodgates where everyone comes across and gets a court date 6 or 8 years in the future with little probability of them ever showing up. And they have no identification, so we don't know who they are anyway.
Let me talk a little bit, because you did bring it up, is jobs, because the economy is, of course, has a huge impact on everyone. I mean, everyone, you can go back to James Carville talking about it's the economy. And right now you're seeing some real contraction in the agriculture implement industry. And of course, I'm pointing to Deere & Company. You're seeing some widespread layoffs that are really impacting, in particular, the Quad Cities. What concern do you have in that area? And have you been able to do anything at this point as a candidate? And what would you do as a congressman?
You point to a really important aspect of our economy. Obviously, our import exports legislation has got to control imposing tariffs on bad actors like China. China is not merely a competitor of ours, they are an adversary of ours. And imposing substantial tariffs on things coming from China can only be good for the U.S. because it makes their goods less affordable, less available. More things will be made in America by Americans for Americans. As far as the agricultural implement contraction that you spoke about, this is just the continuation of trade policies that favor foreign countries, make it more difficult to manufacture things here and compete with countries that subsidize their workers, subsidize their factories. Some of them have child labor like China, some have slave labor like China. And so how can a free country compete with that? So we've got to make sure that our deals with the EU are favorable to the US. We're the #1 soybean producer in the entire country. Also a tremendous amount of sweet corn, and field corn for animals, for gasoline. And so it's time for us to start structuring our system of tariffs and trade deals to favor Americans, favor American manufacturers, favor American agriculture.
Well, and as you know, Deere & Company is creating this plant in Mexico where a lot of these jobs in Dubuque, as well as in the Quad Cities and Waterloo, are supposedly heading. I mean, should Deere be penalized in some way or incentivized to keep the workers here?
That's a complex question. And Deere, it's very unfortunate. I've spoken to people who worked their whole lives at Deere or Caterpillar or some other mainstay in our regional economy, and they're all feeling that, others won't have the lives that they had. Their kids won't have the lives that they had, won't have the job security that they had, won't have the retirement available that they've had. And so Deere gave into the economic pressures that make it more advantageous, more cost-effective to make something in Mexico. That shouldn't be the case. So incentivizing our American manufacturers to make things here by making it disadvantageous for them to make them in other countries is all part of a regulatory scheme that shows that we want to keep Americans first, keep American workers first, keep things being built here. But our current administration has not done that. It's their trade policies that have led to this exodus.
Changing subjects, as you know, reproductive rights is going to be a major issue in this campaign. You live in a very blue state where protection of abortion rights is being done all over from Springfield. What is your view as far as the state's rights issue of reproductive rights, and what is your view as far as abortion is concerned?
Well, I think the Supreme Court got it right when they overturned Roe. They sent it back to the states where it was before Roe. Everybody didn't like Roe for one reason or another, because it stopped the normal political processes from going forward in the different states. Right now, we see there's a big change in attitude towards abortion than 50 years ago when Roe was passed, or Roe was enacted. And so now it's back to the states where it belongs. The states should be the ones to decide. Your elected leaders are much closer to the people in the states, and they're more responsive to your position. In Illinois is abortion on demand up through the 9th month. So I don't think abortion or reproductive rights are going to be an issue in this race. There's literally no limitations on abortion here in Illinois. It's back to the states where it should have been all along. So I think the Supreme Court got it right with the Dobbs decision.
Well, and as you know, I mean, you're in Western Illinois, you're a border district. So you have Iowa, which has a stronger reproductive restrictions, that is, and Missouri as well. I mean, are you worried about two things? One is people crossing the border to come into Illinois, or other states preventing people from crossing the border for their own reproductive rights?
That's what I'll call an incomplete hypothetical. I don't know of any states that are preventing people from coming to Illinois. We're happy to have people come to Illinois that are citizens, okay, for whatever reason. And, sure, that will happen. That's just part of the political will as played out among the 50 states. Some states will have more restrictions, some will have less. And over time, this will continue to evolve. But that's the way it should be. The people in Iowa, they get to vote for their elected officials and form their own policies. People in Illinois get to vote for their elected officials, their representatives, their senators, and their governor. And they've chosen the policies that are in effect in Illinois. That's how it should be.
If you're elected to Congress, you're also going to quickly become a person who has to be well-versed in international affairs, of course. And right now we're seeing the powder keg of the Middle East. What do you see as far as Israel's role in Gaza right now? And are you worried that this is becoming a much bigger issue when you have assassinations that take place in Lebanon and in Iran?
Oh, yeah. This is something that any sober, serious thinking person should be paying close attention to. You have Iran. Again, everything's connected to everything, Jim. Iran couldn't sell their oil under the previous administration, and they were broke. Under the Biden administration, they lifted the sanctions for Iran selling oil. Oil's then sold to China. China made Iran rich. Iran now has the money to fight their proxy wars against Israel through Hamas and Hezbollah and others, and the Houthis. So there are connections to foreign policy decisions we make and the safety and fate of Israel. Israel, keep in mind, was attacked. Thousands of civilians were killed, and they have to fight through and finish the job they started against Hamas in Israel. But we're all cautioned as we see fleets of ships and planes going into the theater right now. We're all cautioned at the potential for regional or more expansion of this war.
Do you have sympathy, though, for the plight of those in Gaza? I mean, you obviously do, but at what point is enough enough? I mean, at what point is the suffering not commensurate with the original crime?
I don't think you can view it in a ledger fashion, like how much suffering, how bad was the original crime. You've got to take a historical look. Of course, I'm sympathetic to the people in the Gaza region and those in Lebanon and other places that have lost lives as a result of this enlarging regional war. But Israel, since they became a nation in 1947, the day they declared they were a nation, the U.S. recognized them on day one as a nation. And since then, the very first day, they've been attacked on and off by all of the countries surrounding them, who fundamentally have as one of their core beliefs that Israel does not have the right to exist. That's sort of an incompatible point of view, of course, with the Israeli point of view. And Israel is a very diverse country that people come from all over the world. They're a democracy. They're a loyal ally of the United States. They exchange military information, exchange technical information. We're trade partners. No one likes to see one more unnecessary civilian death. But when Hamas chooses to hide among the people, they are the ones that are bringing an increasing death toll upon the civilians.
how important is it for the U.S. to continue its backing of Ukraine in an ongoing war against Russia?
Yeah, that's another example of weak leadership from President Biden, Vice President Harris. You got to remember that during the previous administration, we were, as Donald Trump would say, drill, baby, drill. We were exporting oil and natural gas all over the world, and including liquefied natural gas, which we were shipping to Europe, the EU, because Russia had the market cornered. Russia could only sell weapons and energy. And we took one of their mainstays of their economy away from them by selling our liquefied natural gas and petroleum in Europe at a price they couldn't compete with. So they didn't have any money to be aggressive. Then Joe Biden comes in. Those are he puts the clamp on energy production, energy distribution, pipelines, permitting, all in the under the guise of favoring green energy. Well, in Illinois, I should say in the district on any given day, solar and wind never account for more than about 17% of the total energy draw. You have nuclear, you have hydroelectric, you have fossil fuel, you have natural gas. And so they don't see the connection, but the connection is plain. Now Russia is able to sell its energy at a profit in Europe. They've cornered the market once again. Now their buck's up. They have the money and to attack Ukraine. They've attacked Ukraine. And it's also been in the face of dithering weak leadership by the Democratic administration.
But how much of a backing for Ukraine should continue? What would you like to see?
I'd like to see the war come to a negotiated settlement. I don't know that either side will ever be able to declare total victory here. I think it's more of a standoff, but it has to be a negotiated settlement. You cannot have Russia, quote unquote, win the war and conquer Ukraine, because that will just continue to destabilize NATO, continue to destabilize all of the Eastern European countries in that area. Ukraine is a large country, they're smaller. And if it can be done to Ukraine, it can be done to them. And so there's an important issue at stake here to stop Russian aggression. But we have to have accountability for the money that's going there. We have to make sure it's being properly spent. We don't have those assurances now. We have to make sure their military is working effectively. We don't have those assurances now. So I think the bottom line is it never should have happened. It wouldn't have happened but for weakness. Now that it's here, we have to come to a negotiated settlement that restores a measure of peace and equilibrium in Europe.
I have very little time left with you. I thank you for your time, but just one quick last question is, as you know, it's more of a Democratic-leaning district, the 17th. So where do you fall on the political spectrum?
Well, I'm running as a Republican, as you know, but as I've told people, when I decided to run for Congress, I wasn't trying to earn my letter jersey, from the Republicans, okay? I'm not going there as a diehard Republican or an anti-Democrat person. As a judge, you learn how to listen carefully, take information in from all sides, be open-minded, be fully present, really listen, considering the possibility the answer might exist outside your experience, outside your knowledge. And I'm going to Washington, D.C. I don't need a job. I don't need a title. I'm going there because I want to be the adult in the room that listens to both sides and is able to sort things out that work for everybody in the district, because the border, the economy, these are not partisan issues. These are kitchen table issues that affect everybody.
Our thanks to 17th Illinois Congressional District Joe McGraw, Republican from Rockford. Murray Lee is a singer, songwriter, and acoustic guitarist who heads the band Murray Lee and the Sons of Hades. He's been part of a number of area bands, plus a number of different instruments he plays. We invited him to take the stage on the Black Box Theater in Moline to perform one of his originals. So here's Murray Lee with Claustrophobic.
I was flipping through a news article traits, their size and their shape are genetic. Oh, what an awful trick. I was reading chapters in a people's history of the United States. Oh, what an awful place to be, and I'm too poor to leave. I was reading in a science journal about Mother Earth. Her fever's getting worse. Oh, I'm stuck in a hearse. I was trying to understand a Brian Greene book about space-time and how our strings are attached to it. Oh, I feel so claustrophobic.
Murray Lee with Claustrophobic performed at Moline's Black Box Theater. On the air, on the radio, on the web, on your mobile device, and streaming on your computer. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
At IHM VCU, we've always been here for you. You are and always will be our top priority. We care about your financial health, and we are here. IHM VCU is a proud supporter of WQPT.
The future, that's where our minds are at Western Illinois University Quad Cities. We are innovators, searching for something new outside of the textbooks. Dog-loving, leadership-driven, world-changing. Whether you choose to study on campus or online, your future is designed on your terms. Start your future at wiu.edu/QC.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 35 years.